All right, let me start over because I hate hello and welcome back to the Ask the Color Expert podcast. Today's special guest is Rachel McMillan. She is a salon owner of Hair Mechanix in Pennsylvania. She is a national educator for Winn Pro. And the point of difference in her salon that I love is it's a teaching salon. She loves taking new stylists and sharing with them and mentoring them to turn them into confident stylists while working in her salon. So, welcome, Rachel. I'm so excited you're here. Finally, we've been trying to get together and we
Yeah.
both have crazy lives. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I was blown away. I mean, and I don't want to give you too many roses, sister, but when you asked me to do it, I just felt like, holy smokes, like Elaine's asking me to be on her podcast. Like, what a privilege. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's my absolute pleasure. I have watched you blossom and grow as an educator. It's been an amazing thing to witness and to follow along with. Not only have you changed physically in appearance, and I'm so jealous of all of that, but you've grown so much in your confidence, in your ability to teach, which is not easy, as you know. Just the body positioning alone of teaching to an audience versus doing hair behind the chair to me is one of the most difficult things. Not
Absolutely.
having your armpit in their face, not having your butt in their face, being able to twist yourself into a pretzel so that the audience is getting the best view is
Yep.
really, not easy, especially in a video situation. And you are living the dream, being able to be an educator, be all things, be a mom at the same time as pursuing your dreams. And as someone who's done the same, I can tell you work life balance is not really a thing because when you're at work, you feel guilty you're not with your kids. When you're with your kids, you feel guilty you're falling behind at work. And there is no such thing as balance. But when you have the passion that you and I have for what we do, it feels more balanced than it probably is and seems less stressful because it's joyful.
I definitely have to agree with that, especially the guilt. Just the both ways guilt. Like I definitely, I have three boys, I have a husband, I've been married for, well, I've been with him for almost 20 years and we've got teenagers, but now is when I feel like they need me the most, but it's when I can't be there the most. So
Yes.
it's definitely hard.
I agree. And when I opened up my schedule, when I finally realized how much that I missed, especially working Saturdays, as you know, that's when they seem to have everything that they need you for. When I finally was like, wait, I'm the owner. Why am I doing this? Like I'm the reason that I'm working Saturdays. Like I'm not working at some company that I'm forced to. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And when I stopped, they were at the age where they no longer wanted me to be with them on a Saturday. So now I'm home and I'm like, well,
What do I
this
do?
sucks. Yeah,
Right.
what do I do with myself? Because I was so used to working so physically hard and Saturday being such a big day that I didn't know what to do with myself. And I was like, I really waited too long. So one of my platforms as an educator is I'm always telling young girls that are starting out with small children, please do not stress about working when you should be with your children because you can
Yes.
get that time back. I didn't realize you have three.
Yeah. Well,
I
and
know.
I have a bonus kid. I have my husband had a daughter before we met, and I mean she's my daughter. We don't say step in my family, but
Yeah.
um, so I'm a very blessed woman. I'm covered in children and I have a little 2-year-old granddaughter too now. So
Oh,
yeah.
now I have another reason to be jealous of you. That's amazing. I hope that I get grandbabies. So you ticked off your bucket list. My ultimate goal was to do Salon International in London,
Oh,
and I'm so proud of you. You did a great job. I love that you shared your journey and all the way through it. It was amazing. What was it like to be across the pond and be? I've attended shows in both Italy and Paris, but I've never taught at one of those shows. So what was that like compared to say, a behind the chair show or a premiere show here in the States? Is there any like big difference that you could point out between them?
oh, there's one big difference between here in America and over there, and it is just the transaction, right? So when we're up on stage and in the booth, whether you're in a booth, whether on the main stage, the point of what you do is to show a technique or show a product and, make it shine. So when I was over here, we very much are relationship connected. Like, that's why I love what I do with who I do it with, because it's all about relationship building and meeting new people and investing in their life and improving it. So, but over there, it is extremely transactional. So when they come up to the booth and they're looking for a technique or a certain product, it's not, hey, let me know about your family or let me know who you are. Like, that was weird to them. It was almost like I was offending them by asking them, do you have kids? What do you do outside of this? Like, they were like, no, I'm here to buy product from you, ma'am.
That's
And that is what I would
interesting.
like to do. So that was a little difficult for me at first, but then when I kind of understood it after a while. And then I was like, okay, so these people are about business. It's not about fluff. It's about, let's get it done. So that was my main difference that I found.
That's very interesting. And luckily there was no language barrier with it being England, so
Yeah.
at least we could understand each other.
Yeah.
We went when the first hair show that I went to was Paris, and of course, we sat through this runway presentation and we didn't understand a word that they were saying because everything was in French. I was surprised at how very similar. Like, I think when you live in the US and you think about Europe, you think they're always ahead of us. They're always the trendsetters. They always do everything first. But I
Right.
didn't find that to be the case. Did you find that in Salon International? I didn't find it in Paris or
Mm-mm.
in Italy. It was
I
pretty much.
didn't. I didn't. As a matter of fact, I felt like, I mean, we look like we don't reinvent the wheel here, right? Like, there's nothing new under the sun, and I just think that we put our own spin on it, and that's what makes it special for us. So I feel like they do the same thing, and they're very into fashion, and I feel like that's here too. So I don't really see much of a difference there. I just think it's the way we look at things.
One thing that I noticed is different, and I wanted to talk about this because this is a fresh perspective and almost fresh wound, I would say. Both of us just came off of Premiere Orlando a few days
Yeah.
ago, and I have such mixed emotions every time I do a show. There's part of me that feels like I have earned the right to be there because of my years of experience and that I've been doing it almost 40 years. Uh-oh, where'd you go? You just disappeared. So I've been in the industry almost 40 years. I've owned a salon. I've written a book. I've taught on stages. I've ticked off all the boxes. I feel like I have a lot of experience and still have a lot of passion to share what I learned and really excited to pay it forward to the younger generation. What I've seen that I don't love is a little bit of ageism in the show scene because you know, when you're in the hallways and you're walking by people, like I've never worn the hat. I've never worn the cool outfits and skin tight things. And I always look like a woman who is my own age. And I don't realize how unrelatable that I am to the new generation as far as what I look like.
Okay.
And when I share my knowledge and what I'm passionate about, there's this layer of I don't really believe this lady because I can't relate to her because she's not my age. And I need to fact check it with someone who's my age, who most times does not know the right answer. And
Yeah.
they trust the person that's their peer more than they trust me. That happened at this show. So I said something in my class about a formula, which I hate giving out to begin with. I said, you guys all keep asking for recipes. I'll give you a recipe. And I used an example where a palest apricot copper is used to take hair that's like ready to crispy, crunchy, fall off the head white and turn it into the most beautiful, believable blonde that's almost vanilla, was what I said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was taken out of context, and this person put it in a forum with a bunch of strangers that she doesn't know, their experience, their credentials, nothing about them. They're just strangers on the Facebook page. And she said, this educator said this, and I don't know, I just don't get it. And everybody chimed in and was like, "Ah, that's crazy. She doesn't know what she's talking about, blah, 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 blah," like all the way down. And of course, ballsy me chimes in. I'm like, that was me. I like went right
Right.
in. I said, that was me. And you've taken it completely out of context where it does sound crazy. This was the context. I put the context in. And I said, and I would love to share a photo with you if you prefer to see it. Basically, like if you were to swatch this, right now on, totally white fur, ready to snap off hair, you will see what I'm talking about. But because I'm 57 and I am like a mother or grandmother to you, and you think, what could this old lady possibly know? There's a shift. I just went to the Dali Museum this weekend or yesterday, and the respect for a famous artist after they're dead is amazing. Like people say, "Oh my God, what a genius! What a contribution to our society! This amazing art and this wisdom and this. He was so ahead of his time and all the things." But in our industry, it's almost like once you hit, say, 50, you no longer are relevant. You don't know what you're talking about. You're like old news and not, up to date with anything. Where really you and I know, you just said it in the beginning, everything that's new is something that we did years ago back again.
Yeah.
There's not that understanding with the new generation. So you
Well,
probably don't get it as much. You're much younger than me. You're cooler than me. So you wear the hat, you show up for them that way. But have you seen that to be something that you find interesting with like the younger generation, or not so much?
oh, 100%. So let me just tell you. So the girl that I have working for me in my salon, she's been a year and a half out of school. I hired her in August, and she came to me because she wanted a mentor, because she wanted somebody to walk her through. She knew she needed it. And the girl she couldn't even do a root touch up. She was literally trying to put color, not touch the scalp, and not touch demarcation and cover gray. Like that's how they taught her. And I believe, especially in the young, like teenagers into early 20s, like they're not being taught correctly. They're being taught how to pass that test. They're not being taught how to be a hairdresser in a business. My stylist, again, I'll refer to her. I joke about it, but I think I hired the only teenager that doesn't social media. I mean, like at all. And so I've had to walk her through like the basics just to get her up to par so that I can have her assist me. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't know. I think it's coming from the schools and where they're learning. And then, we have access to all the beautiful virtual education that we have, but a lot of it is clips, right? Like you see somebody doing a root shadow and a color melt, but you're only seeing the first section. And then in the next clip, it's this bright, beautiful blonde, but nobody's saying, hey, that took 5 hours to do. That wasn't a
Right.
2-minute clip, and it wasn't a quick color mount. Like this was the base work of the canvas had to be done first, and we had to do all this formulation and la la la. No one's talking about that. No one's talking about the hard parts of our job on virtual. They're only doing little clips, and it's giving this unrealistic expectation. So then when someone like you comes in and says, "No, wait a minute. You've got to formulate that, you've got to use this and this," they're looking at you like, well, no, I don't, because they just don't know. And we don't know what we don't know. But then, like, for me, I've always been, let me find the best person in the room, and I'm going to park my tail right next to that person and learn everything they can teach me, instead of, oh, that's my competition. Like, I just don't see anyone as my competition. Everyone's got a skill set you can learn from. So I feel like if that was taught more in school, from the formulative months to the graduation, I think that would be different. But I agree with you.
Yeah. And
And
it's
it's
funny
sad.
because, yeah.
I mean, it's sad. Like I'm over here literally going, oh my gosh, Elaine Travis invited me on her podcast. Like, let me do that. Right. Like I was so excited. But then to hear that younger kids are looking at you and they're like, yeah, she don't know what she's talking about. I'm thinking, do you have any idea what she could give to you if you would just listen, stop this and start this?
Yeah. It's so
So
frustrating because, some of the things that I said in the class, I would say, raise your hand if you've ever, and I would say a scenario, and like one hand would go up. And I'm like, you guys can go get a coffee or something. Like, clearly, you know more than I do. I don't even know why you're
right,
here. And then they would look at me
right.
like, no, we don't want to leave. And I'm like, well, if you say that's never happened to you, you're full of shit, because I
Right.
always call a spade a spade. I'm like, there's no way that you are a living, breathing colorist and you've never had that happen. There's just
Thank
no
you.
way. And then
Thank
all
you.
of a sudden, 13 hands would go up, but that's still only the 13 brave. And my son was with me for the first time. And I said, what do you think that's about? And he's like, you're kind of scary. Like, I think that when you say it, they're so afraid to raise your hand that you're going to ask them something and put them on the spot, which was never my intention. I was
Right.
trying to say, like, look, I've been doing it almost 40 years and I've had it happen. I can only imagine that you've all had it happen. I was trying to be more relatable, but he's like, they're
Relatable.
probably so afraid that you're going to like quiz them on something and they're going to feel dumb. I was like, well, no, I didn't mean to do that at all.
That's actually a really good point to bring up. And like when I'm doing like when I started my education platform, like you had mentioned earlier, like my body changed, my look changed, like everything changed. I was very heavy and I had no confidence because of that. That kept me from doing so much in this industry that I now feel confident to do. But my whole environment in my classroom, the first thing I say is this is a safe space. You can ask any question. It's not the only question that you don't ask is a dumb question. Like ask the questions. And nobody else in here is allowed to make you feel bad about it. We're not doing that because I was that girl. I was that
Mhm.
girl that wanted to know so much but was so terrified to ask questions that I kept myself back, in the back seat because it was scary. So, I mean, I think starting out education, even on those platforms, like when I was at the Pennsylvania show a couple weeks ago and I was teaching in classroom on stage and I was terrified. I'm always nervous when I get
That's
on stage
good though.
in
They say
classroom.
when you're not nervous anymore, that it's time to
You
hang
should
it up.
quit.
You're not, yeah.
Yeah. So I had asked like you did, like, hey, have you ever, right? Or has anybody ever experienced this? And no one's raising their hands. And I put my stuff down and I was like, well, look, I sure have. And this happens to me often, which is why I ask the question. And then after that, they were like, "Oh yeah, you know what? I did have that happen." So
Yeah.
I think your son hit a good point. Trying to be a little bit like maybe they were scared.
Yeah.
I don't want to be picked out of a crowd and say, because what I'm worried about as an educator is I'm going to say something and slip, and then somebody out in the crowd's going to hear that and point it out to me like, "You're wrong, you're wrong." But at the end of the day, this is an art we do. So, yes, there are some right and wrongs in what we do, but there's also not like it's also I don't know how I'm trying to say it, but I feel like there's not a hard and fast rule to everything, right?
Exactly. There's more than one way to do things. And there's not, I'm right, you're wrong on
Sure.
either direction. I always say, these are my opinions and these are my experiences using hair color. I am
Right.
not a chemist. I am not a scientist. You're going to stump me on something, but I'm never going to just say, that you're wrong and I'm right. I'll say, I will find out for you. Like, I'm not sure. Let me find out. There's the dog. Somebody must be
Oh,
delivering something. But it's funny too, because I'm sure you feel this way with social media. I've been teaching for over 7 years now, and never before have I taught and looked out and seen this the whole time. Somebody sitting there filming every word you say, where you're
oh
just like,
yeah.
exactly like you're saying, like, oh crap, I hope I don't diss a company or another educator or anything, just talking quickly and being in the moment. I don't ever want to be taken out of context. I was listening to a really good podcast, one of my favorites, and the woman that was being interviewed is this big scholar. She's written books. She's a doctor about this, that, and the other thing. And they were talking about artificial intelligence. And she said to the podcast host, would you believe that there is an artificial intelligent bot that's supposed to be me? And it was trained. They inputted all of her books into an AI bot and made it where she would be answering people's questions, and it was not approved by her. So it's like the wild, wild west right now. Like you and I, you could be teaching at Premiere. Somebody can snag something that you said, put it into AI, have an AI version of you talking where it looks exactly like you. I just saw an ad with Gwyneth Paltrow for Goop, and it was 100% AI. It was not really her. Like you can tell at the mouth a little bit
Right.
where it's not like lined up. But I was like, this is AI. This is Gwyneth Paltrow AI. Like she's in, the south of France right now in a bikini. She's not doing this
Right.
speaking on this ad. So it's really getting a little bit scary when it comes to being able to be misquoted, misunderstood, and canceled. Like the cancel culture is real.
Yes, it
I have
is.
an ad running around right now all over about 7N. The whole the whole reason for the post, it's a reel, was saying like, don't for a second think that when your client wants a 7N result, that you're going to reach for a 7N. That was the point of the whole post, is
Yeah,
like
I actually
7
saw that. I watched
is,
it. Actually, I watched it a few times, and you're like, look, this 7N, this is 7N, and then this is what, like, it looked like a 5. And you
yeah.
put it up to your roots, and you're like, I'm a 7N. This is not a 7N. I remember, yeah.
If you ever want some shits and giggles, if you find it again, look at all the comments underneath. I have never had so many nasty comments on any reel I've ever done, because I'm going to admit to you right now, because I just started saying it out loud. I have been playing way too safe. I'm trying to please everybody as an
Yep.
educator.
Yep.
I'm like,
I
I
do
don't
that
want to
too.
say this because I don't want that to be taken out of context. And I don't want to say that. I don't want to give my real opinion. And I'm like, who am I serving if I'm dancing around, topics and not really speaking my truth? The real mark of success in our industry, unfortunately, is when you get the haters and the spam on your
Yep.
post. But it doesn't feel any better knowing that. Like when I'm reading it, I'm just like, and I want to go back so bad and be like, no, you're not getting it. Like I want to argue with them. And then
Right.
I'm like, that's lowering my standards and stooping to their level. I can't do that. But it's so frustrating because they're not getting at all what the point of the post. They're like, are you even a hairdresser? Do you even know how to color hair? Like all these mean things. And I'm just like, why is everybody so reactive? And then I was talking about with my husband, I said, I think the reason that they're getting so nasty is hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
So something that
Yes.
I'm saying is poking them in what they know or don't know about hair color. And it's manifesting in like, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about, versus, oh, this is interesting. Tell me more. I wish
Or
there was
versus
more. This is
somebody
interesting.
just
Tell
being
me more.
honest with you and saying, you know what? You're right. Or you know what? I'm upset because I had a bad experience, or I did something wrong and had a bad experience. So I'm going to make you feel like crap about it, because my experience, I don't want to talk about my experience. I just want to make sure you know you're wrong so that I can feel right.
And then
Instead of just being
everybody
honest.
goes and rescues the hater. They're like,
Yes.
yeah, girl, I was thinking the same thing, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, where does it get anybody when it's not the tell me more? Like if I don't understand something and I'm at somebody's class, I'm not going to, heckle them from the crowd and say things and embarrass them. Even when I wasn't an educator, I would never do that. I would wait until after the class, stand in that big long line of people trying to get, their one question answered, and ask the question that I had. I was like, I'm sorry to keep you here, but I really don't want to leave here with this question because it's really important to me to understand.
Yeah.
And then they, were wonderful about giving the answer because I didn't put them on the spot, stop the middle of the class, cause, wreak havoc in the class by heckling. But I'm like, it's just such a different landscape. And I don't want to not want to be at the table.
Right.
I want to be able to contribute. I want to be able to feel seen and understood. And it gets harder every single year because, to your point, everybody and their mother is now an educator if they have an Instagram page. It's like they just baptize themselves official
Yep.
educator. And there's no credential background checking. It's like
Oh, definitely not.
did you see the guy using, it's either mousse or shaving cream or something, and he's painting it really quickly on a really dark hair, and the girl comes out this beautiful balayage, perfectly blended
Right.
color out. And
Right.
I'm like, that's clickbait. Like he wants you to click it and follow him, and it's working. He has millions of, views, but it's so sad that like someone's going to take bleach and do that.
Yeah,
Some young
they're gonna have a
hairdresser is
mess,
going to be like,
and then they're
yeah,
gonna they're gonna that's what I would do. And then I would blame myself, Elaine. Like,
you did
I'm
something
just
wrong.
not a
Yeah.
good hairdresser. I'm just
You
not
didn't
good.
mix it right. You picked the wrong product. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can't possibly be that we see through and just see, you know what? That's garbage. What he's doing is causing all these students and all these like younger hairdressers more grief than they even have a clue about. But because he's got a million followers, they're going to listen to his advice
Yeah.
instead of going and finding someone like you or I or my friend Jack or my friend Brittany or any of us that really do educate. We really have gone through school. Like, we've gone like I have a whole curriculum I follow through with National Educator. Like I'm getting ready to do a video to show them I can still do what I know to do. And so you have people like us that have these things that we're doing because we love it and we take it so seriously. And then you have someone like that who just ruins it because they're an influencer. I mean, let me tell you, like I can influence some conversations, but I'm not worried about being an influencer. I'm worried about helping people and
Yeah.
improving their life, not making money off of them and saying, see you later.
Yeah.
It's
Gary
tough.
Vee was just talking, I think it was yesterday. I saw a post from Gary Vee, and he was saying that AI is really going to blow up all the influencer world because companies are going to train their own AI influencer to be able to say whatever the heck they want because they're
Yep.
paying, people pay Kim Kardashian, 50 grand to do, probably more, to do one post on her Instagram to act like she loves a product. And they said that, the influencers aren't following through with the amount of posts, with the type of posts. They're not following the structure of what the company was looking for, and they're being disillusioned by it. So now they're like, hey, we'll just create our own character that has a bajillion followers and it's not even a human. And it's getting really scary is the bottom line.
That
Very,
is
very
scary.
scary.
Because imagine this, like you've got actual people right now who are doing the influencer thing. And listen, some of them have great advice, right? Like some of them really are good at their job. And I don't want to take from that because there are some really good ones, but it's always the weeds. It's always the ones in the weeds that cause the trouble. But now if you've got like with the artificial intelligence thing, right? Like how far is that going to go? How and who's going to put rules on it, and how is it going to be policed for that matter, right? Like is it going to be, I mean, social media isn't policed, the internet isn't policed, so how are they going to stop with artificial intelligence? And then I
Yes.
remember actually somebody said to me a couple years ago, well, not couple, it's been about 10 years ago when social media really started to become a thing. I was told, look, you've got to get on the social media train or you're going to get left behind. Well, I just heard that at our educators summit last year. You better get on the AI train or you're going to get left behind. And I'm uncomfortable with it, Elaine. I don't want it. I really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, I
But
don't
I
think
don't
we're
know
going
that
to
I
have
have a
much of a
choice.
choice. No, we don't have a choice. So, as a salon owner, I love that you're standing out by being a teaching salon. That is a very rare thing. Most salon owners are so busy doing all the things that they really don't have time to commit to training people. And then there's the whole stealing people from each other and the commission wars and all those things. And the industry has changed so much, the most, I think, in the last 5 years than ever in the history of our industry,
Right.
especially in Pennsylvania. You and I are both, our salons are both in Pennsylvania. So we're kind of behind as
Yeah.
far as booth rent and all those things. But do you find it harder and harder to be able to hire people in a commission structure with the state of the industry being so.
It's awful. I'm not going to lie to you. Like I've had this conversation with my salon coordinator just yesterday and I said like what I need, and please, I'm not tooting my own horn, but what I need is another Rachel. What I need is somebody of my caliber. But let's face it, I wouldn't work for 45% commission. I wouldn't. That's ludicrous. Why would I do that when I can do what I'm doing? So I got to this part in my journey where I realize if I'm going to have employees and I'm going to have people, it is people that are going to need me. So that's why I'm a teaching salon, not because I don't want to teach, but like I kind of have to if I'm going to have people in my chair. And in Pennsylvania, because we're a cosmetology salon, I can't rent my stations. And that's another thing I have a, like mad face about is if I was a barbershop, I could, which
Even in PA, barbers can
even
do
if,
that?
yep, in Pennsylvania, barbers can rent their stations, but cosmetology salons cannot. And I'm like, you know, I don't want to turn into a barbershop. That's not, I mean, I have a barber like license, but that's not what I do. That's not my thing. I do cut men's hair and I really like it, but that's not what I want to be. So yes, finding qualified hairdressers that come with a book and all that, I feel like that ship has sailed, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, the good news for you is I just listened to a really good podcast about the difference between commission, booth rent, solo, all the things. And the most profit potential still is the commission salon, because when you think about booth rent, it's the one set price.
Yep.
You have to chase them down for the rent sometimes. If they're not doing well, they're going to be dodging you and not want to pay the rent. And I noticed in a lot of the forums, I used to think, because we were in PA, the grass is always greener. I used to think, oh, if I could just collect rent and call it a day and not have to
Yep.
worry about being mom or being the police and making sure everybody shows up and is in dress code and all the things. But they have the same exact problems. People coming in out of dress code, people being unprofessional, people being late and not, following the salon standards and everything. So it's just all the same. It's people. It's dealing
Well,
with
and
people.
in the booth rent world, you can't, I mean, as the salon owner, you're just their landlord
Yeah.
at that point. So you really don't have control over them at all if you do it the way that it's supposed to be done. And that's another reason why I chose commission salon over, because I'm right on the Pennsylvania Maryland line. So I totally could have opened in Maryland and had a booth rental situation.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
but this made more sense to me at the time because I have a standard I want to keep here, and a certain I have a certain experience I want my clients to have, and the only way to have control over that is to have opened a commission salon where I set the rules.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, finding people is not easy because right now I'm looking for another hairdresser and a nail tech. I very much would like to have that as part of my space, but I've got one opportunity in my town to have a good impression. So it's got to be the right people.
Yeah. And I love the whole mentor mentee relationship as far as taking the training behind the chair as you're in the salon. I know Jessie Skittrell has an amazing program called Atarashi, where it's like a complete apprenticeship where it's not a typical beauty school. Like you work in a salon the entire time you're in school. I wish that was around when I went to school. I feel like,
Wow.
and you should talk to him. I know he just got approval for PA. So that's an option for you since you're so passionate about teaching. So they come to you, they're shampooing, they're mixing color, they're doing everything with you and learning they're in a real salon. And then Jesse and his company take care of all the book work, all the testing, it's amazing.
Wow, I definitely want that connection. We'll talk after. Maybe you can give me his information because
For sure.
I might have it,
That's
but
how, that's how, Europe and Australia, all the other countries.
holy smokes, man. If I didn't have to deal with the paperwork side of it
Yeah.
and all I had to do was show up and teach, I mean, that's genius. It's
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah. And they come out so much more confident because they're watching you, even just being in there next to you. It doesn't feel like a classroom, but every day is a classroom. Every minute of every day is a learning experience
Yep.
because they're seeing you deal with a client who's, always late or no shows or has, a spouse pass away and how you handle the conversation with them. Those are things you can't learn in a textbook,
Absolutely.
whether virtual or in person. Those are things that cannot be taught. That's life experience. That's emotional intelligence. That's all the things that are learned behaviors that we don't always get from our parents. Our parents aren't always emotionally intelligent and, they have different ways of dealing with things. And sometimes they're under the rug sweepers. Sometimes they're in your facers. Like we all come from different families and it's hard to learn the soft skills of not technique,
Yeah. Well, having that conversation because and now I feel like nowadays we have more friends that are coming to us on the spectrum. We have more friends that are coming to us with some baggage, we'll say, or friends that are coming to just all walks of life, right? But we're having more different things than I was seeing 20 years ago. So my stylist is very much direct. She's a very direct person and sometimes comes across a little hard with her clients. And we've had to have those conversations like, why don't you consider doing it this way for me? Try it this way this time. And so, yeah, you do kind of teach them all of that, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you are a gift. You are absolutely a gift to that person and you're a gift to our industry, and people need to know more about what you're doing and where you are and how to find you. So if someone's listening and they want to come work for you in PA or they want to come to one of your events with Winn Pro, what's the best way for them to follow you?
Well, I am Hair Mechanix with an X, so HAIRMECHANIX LLC on Instagram, Rachel McMillan or Hair Mechanix LLC on Facebook. And please private message me. I'm always open for that, especially with what we do with Winn Pro. And I found that line about 6.5 years ago. That was before I was an educator. And quite frankly, that was before I was even a good hairdresser. I've been doing hair for 18 years and thought I knew what I was doing. I really did. And then I got around people who cared about me and wanted to see me get better. And in that time, being around those people and taking the education that they offered me, it made me who I am now. So it really is about improving other people's lives. It's not about competition anymore. Like I just want to crush that competition word. You don't have competition. You just have a learning experience. Take it or leave it, you know?
I love that. Very
So,
true.
yeah.
Very true. And you are genuine, you're authentic, you're, no BS. And I love that about
Thank
you.
you.
Very approachable. You do always answer your DMs and all of those things, which many people do not. So thank you for being spontaneous and being my guest. I'm glad we were able to get together.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, let's keep in touch. And everybody
Please.
listening, reach out to Rachel. And thanks for listening to this episode. We will see
Excellent.
you
Thank you.
on the next one.
All right. See you later, friends.